Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We at Engage are very appreciative of this initiative taken by Ethnic Media Services to present what I believe is another informative session on addressing the issue of possible undercount in and of the ethnic communities in the 2020 census, especially in this environment of the COVID-19 pandemic. Let me make a few brief comments about the organization that I represent relative to our efforts to ensure that Muslims in the 12th county Houston metropolitan area do not continue to be an undercounted community in the upcoming census. Engage's primary mission is to ensure that the MASA, that is Muslim, Arab, South Asian communities, develop an understanding of engagement with the mainstream US political spectrum. We seek to educate, empower, and engage MASA Americans through educational events, voter initiatives, and leadership development in order to create a community of equitable, knowledgeable, and motivated citizens. The root cause most present in the work Engage does is a lack of knowledge about the importance of community organizing and building strong relationships that's imperative if Muslim Americans are to thrive and become a politically participating community. Engage was established in 2008 when two nonprofit entities, one from Texas and the other from Florida, merged to form a 501c3 nonprofit educational entity. Engage also has a 501c4 advocacy registered as Engage Action with an associated Political Action Committee or PAC. Engage has chapters in Texas, Florida, Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, along with a presence in New York, California, Illinois, and Ohio. Since we had worked on the 2010 census, 2 years ago, Engage Texas recognized the importance of the upcoming 2020 census by studying the federal government's plan, or lack thereof, in organizing the census, as well as the relative lack of support for it in the Texas legislature. We applied for grants from multiple foundations and are grateful to the Houston Endowment, Houston in Action, Harris County, and Fair Immigrant Rights Movement for assisting us in funding our outreach work that we have undertaken in our community. Although a quarter of the Muslims in the greater Houston area are non-immigrant African Americans, the majority of Muslims are of immigrant heritage, with large populations from the subcontinent area of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, as well as Indonesia, Middle East, North Africa, and from African countries like Nigeria, Sudan, and Somalia. So let me set the stage for the census challenges faced by the Muslim community here. In 2015, then candidate Donald Trump led off his presidential campaign with disparaging remarks about immigrants and Muslims. Now his administration has acted on his vision via the Muslim travel ban and the continuing rhetoric against immigrants from all over the world, but particularly from areas of majority Muslim populations. These actions have resulted in fear, apprehension, and trepidation among the Muslim community for any initiative of the federal government, especially those whereby information or data are collected on individuals, just like the census program. There have been two other specific administration actions that have exacerbated the angst among Muslims. The attempt to include the citizenship question in the census form, though finally not made part of the census, has nevertheless done its likely intention of creating a sense of anxiety in an immigrant community like the Muslims. Additionally, there have been continuing comments by administration officials that such data will get collected by other government data gathering functions. And the second is the overt action of the Trump administration to leave out of the census form the recognition of the Middle East, North African, that is MENA heritage, even though it had been specifically recommended by the Obama administration. And unfortunately, the census form actually has a segment where people from the Middle East are counted as Anglos by putting in an example of Lebanese, which many of them do not necessarily identify themselves with the Anglo community in the United States, but do identify themselves with the Muslim community. But many of them, without knowing, are filling out the form and are being counted as white rather than the communities of color that they associate themselves with or affiliate themselves with. Thus, even with the historical experience of undercount the Muslim migrant communities, this Census 2020 presents even more daunting challenges. Additionally, as has been mentioned, for Texas, the 2020 census has another factor that needs to be considered. Based on population projections, Texas is likely to pick up 3 additional congressional seats. An undercount, especially within the communities where we live, would mean that we do not have any participation in these additional seats, and they will likely go to the same, the same kind of demographics uh, that have taken advantage of the gerrymandering, where less and less minority candidates can get elected. So given that background, what are we doing about it? As I noted,
AJ, just have to say, can you wrap up in about a minute, just
yes,
so that we can make sure everybody has time. Thank
yes,
you.
okay. So what are we doing about it? As has been noted, we have grants and we have 3 full-time staff working on the census. Obviously, what we are doing now in the pandemic is very different than what we are doing previously, which was predominantly using our relationship with the mosques community to organize events associated with our mosques and Islamic centers. So having said that, having gotten the relationship done, what we are doing now is we are using imaginative online programs by organizing regular and frequent events. Over the last 2 months, we've had a minimum of 1 online program per week and often 2 to 3. And in developing these programs of interest to our community, we have collaborated with others through inter and intra communities to bring subjects of interest together. And in this, we are grateful to Houston in Action for having given us some additional tools whereby we have been able to get the word about census. And I'll just give you an example. We have organized some food banks, but as people come to go ahead and pick up their food, we are providing them information about the census that they can also go ahead and fill out. So one of the other areas that I feel that I need to talk about is the ethnic media. They are, especially these times, they really are not getting much of the funding that they had gotten before, yet we are utilizing them, especially the radio media, to be able to get the message on the census out. And thanks once again to Ethnic Media Services of California for organizing this forum.